What's up, y'all? Okay, so in this video, y'all remember I said I was going to talk to y'all about how my garden actually works so that y'all can get the ins and outs of how it works. Okay, so I'm going to start back here at the rainwater because that's the life's blood of the garden, or at least, well, the soil is more important, but water is probably second on the list. But I want to go back here and talk to y'all about my water and also talk to y'all about my fertilization schedule. So, I don't have a strict fertilization schedule because stuff happens, life happens. Like I told y'all, I'm not retired, so and what I do for a living always fluctuates. So sometimes, I want to do it right then, but I can't. So, oh look, froggies. Hello, froggy. There's another one. There's another one. There's two more. Anyway, it's been a lot of frogs out here this morning. Anyway, so I know my water looks disgusting, but when I harvested those greens, and I don't think I posted the video yet because I need to edit it, but when I harvested those greens, I put all the stems, all the leaves that was all ate up and that I wasn't going to eat, leaves that were too far gone or they were yellowing, all that. I put that in my rainwater. So y'all can see how many barrels I got. I got a bunch. At some point, I'm going to do underground water here, but I have not done that yet because it ain't that cheap, people. First, you got to buy the stuff. The way I want to do it is I want it to not be seen. That area out there, it's going to be under that, but you won't be able to see it. The only thing that you will see is a water feature, which will be a fountain. And what that fountain is for is to basically, you want to keep the water moving. You don't want to have water in any type of tank just stagnant and it never moves. So there'll be a water feature, like a fountain, like something. I'm going to figure out something, it'll be that, but nothing else will be seen. And I'll also have a pump to where when I want to water everything, it'll pump water out of that water stuff. But the water fountain and stuff, the water feature will be just so that the water doesn't sit stagnant. It will just recirculate the water from the tank through the fountain back down to the tank. You know what I'm saying? So, and like I said, what I want to actually use to do that is not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's going to last for a very, very long time. If any of y'all want to know about that, then just put it in the comments and I'll tell you what system that I'm going to go with. But, I figure that's boring to some people because, yeah. But, because trust me, I don't necessarily like the way this looks, but it is what it is, baby, because all this stuff was free. I didn't pay for none of it. So, air conditioned water, of course, that one fills. I also have brassicas in those too as well. So basically every time I water, since my water has this in it, my water is fertilizer. It's liquid fertilizer, but this is a weak one. It's not going to burn anything. Anybody who's ever used it knows that it's not going to burn anything, but it works really well. So technically, I feed every day. But because this is so mild or light in the NPK, I think the numbers are fairly low. I don't think they're, this is nowhere near 10. It's probably not even a 555. It's probably like 222 or 333, something like that. I'm pretty sure it's fairly even, but since I water with this water every day, I'm thereby feeding every day. So I still haven't hooked all these together. I don't know whether I'm going to do that or not. I said I was at first, but then I was like, I might just want some cans at some point that don't have holes in them. So y'all saw me, I did this one, I know, at least 2 years ago, where I showed putting the hole in the bulkhead fitting. And I have a pump there that just hooks up to a simple water hose. That's an electric pump. They do make that same pump as a solar pump. You can get that pump at Harbor Freight. You can get it online. It's a fairly cheap pump. It's like $25 or so. And I've been using that pump with no problem ever since I did the video where I put the hole in the can. So I think that's been maybe it's at least 2 years, but I want to say 3. I've been using that pump with no problem. So water gets pumped up here and I water. So the sweet potato bed is a little bit different than the other beds. This I water and the sweet potatoes are planted in ground. I kind of did mound the soil up, but trust me, they go down into the ground. If you've ever seen me harvest them, I mean, you can't keep sweet potatoes from going. They go where the roots go, where they want to go. So like I said, that is mounded up slightly. I do add organic matter to that every year, but that's the only thing that's planted in ground. So when you move over here, it's really not much to see over here. I did these beds. I did these beds, cinder blocks, and just filled them up. These are basically hugelkultur beds. I had a lot of wood I was trying to get rid of. So I filled them up with a lot of wood, and then on top of that I had compost and leaves that have fallen, just a bunch of stuff like that. I actually grew in this the first year. You're not supposed to grow in hugelkulturs the first year. So if you ever wonder why these beds, they're really just now starting to look like something, it's because I think this is the second year that both of these beds have been down here. So that's why they're just now starting to look like something, because you're not supposed to grow in hugelkultur the first year. But baby, I don't be playing. I be trying to plant. And like I said, you can do that if you want. I'm not telling you to do what I do, but I figured it out and it works. Every year I top this off, because as you can see, you see here, there's like almost a finger's width. It sinks down. So I put more organic matter, whether that's leaves, compost, whatever, wood chips, whatever, on top of that, the best that I can. This year though, because I want to warn you, this year, because of that pine tree, I have figured out that, and because of the drought situation, it made it worse. You have to understand, when you have a tree this massive, what you see above ground is twice as much below ground. So the roots are getting into that bed, and I'm not really a huge tiller, but I'm gonna have to till that, because the roots are getting in there, and it's just like compacting everything, and it's sucking up a lot of water, because the roots are just slowly but surely infiltrating through there. Hey, how you doing? So yeah, so I'm gonna have to get those. Like I said, I don't want to pull all them collards, but I think I can pull them and plant them back and not kill them, because collards are pretty tough. Like I tell y'all all the time, collards are tough. If you just pull them up and don't knock all the soil off the root balls and completely destroy the roots, a lot of times you destroy the roots. If you bury enough of the stem, it still don't matter. They'll still grow. They just want to grow like that. So I'm gonna have to go back in there and loosen that up. When I loosen and till that soil up, I'm gonna do it as gently as I can. But I want to break up a lot of those pine roots that are in there. So keep that in mind when you grow beneath huge trees, because you may or may not have that issue. Oaks will do that as well. So when you hear people say, oh, you can't grow below an oak, it'll suck up all the nutrition stuff, it's not really that it's sucking, well, it is sucking up nutrition, but it's sucking up your water. And the root systems are so, like, if you've ever seen the root systems of these huge trees, they're like a carpet, they're like a mat. It's crazy how many roots they actually have. But you have to think about it. When you got a tree that big, that tree is probably over 100 years old. Because I know this one, when I cut the top out of this one, I cut the rings and I lost count at like 90 something years on that one. Same with that one back there. So these trees are very, very old, and their root systems are very, very massive. So keep that in mind. This bed, same thing, hugelkultur. I started with a lot of wood, compost, leaves, worm castings, just all that kind of stuff. That's what I started with in this bed. I wasn't supposed to grow in this bed the first year. I think that's part of the reason why the first year I grew in this bed, why my watermelons weren't that big, because they were just, like I said, hugelkultur, you're not supposed to grow in it the first year. Because the first year the wood is actually, it's kind of sucking up nitrogen to help break itself down. But if you feed it excessively, and I won't lie, I never feed excessively. That's, but I dealt with it. It is what it is. But over here, this is where the intricate stuff is. All that stuff over there is really just self-contained systems. But when you see the tire beds, these are actually easier to maintain, much easier. That's why when I tell people to, think about doing this, because it's a lot easier to do. So, first of all, it's hard to see the tires, and by the way, my garden is finally starting to look how I like it to look, because I don't like to really be able to see the tires that much. I like to, you see how you see so much greenery? Like you can see the tires there and here, but look how the okra is growing. You see what I'm saying? You can't hardly see them. But anyway, so these tires are, I think this row has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this row has 6. It's a double row of 6. So it's 12 beds completely. But keep in mind that I have space in between here that you can't see. Those spaces in between there, I do make use of, and I plant in those spaces. I'll try to show you over here. And it will be a wasp right where I'm trying not to get stung today. But you see I have my comfrey planted in between there. If you've seen my videos where I harvested comfrey and stuff like that, when I planted the Cuban oregano, once again, I plant in between there. So you might say, well, what difference does that make? I never water the stuff in between there. I only water the beds. The soil will soak up as much water as it wants. The rest will go down into the soil under here. These roots are down into the native soil, so they get watered automatically. You see what I'm saying? So it makes it less work for me because I can simply water all this stuff, and all this stuff in the middle, like my rosemary, I never water that. I never fertilize it. I never water it. My oregano is getting shaded out somewhat. It always gets shaded out a little. But I never water the oregano. I never feed the oregano. If the oregano wasn't being shaded out, it would actually be much bigger than what it is right now. So, so that's what I mean when I wanted to say, I wanted to tell y'all how this actually works. So if you are planting in containers, try to think like that. If you can put your containers or your beds or whatever in a way to where when you can water, and then if you got space in between, don't waste the space in between. Plant in the space in between. And when you water those, when the water drains out of those, it will go into something else. Or if you do like Robbie, if you plant in containers, stack your containers. So you just water the top one. Whatever the top one doesn't need, it goes into the next one, goes into the next one, goes into the next one. It's even better if you can capture that water at the end and then reuse it. But that's not always possible. In this system, I'm not able to do that. But I will show you, I'll go back here in the back. I'm not capturing any water currently, but I do have some places that I want to institute that in. But yeah, everything is looking so pretty. The sorrel bed, let me tell y'all, when I first planted these in the cinder blocks, I was watering each individual one in the holes. Now I simply water the big middle part where the cushaw is. And because the Jamaican sorrel roots, because I'm gonna try to show y'all these, show y'all the trunks. See, I'll show y'all how big they are. They just like okra, they get like trees. But you see how, that's my hand for reference of how thick those stems and stuff is. So I don't water each one. The roots are clearly down into the native soil at this point. So any water that this doesn't take goes down into the native soil. It then waters the Jamaican soil. So you see what I'm saying? It's less for me to have to do. This right here is a little different. I actually want to add to this. I think I want to add, maybe if I have 2 here, I can put 2 there. That mulberry tree is getting cut down. And by the way, for those of y'all who think mulberries don't grow fast, look at the trunk on this. This is a 2-year-old tree. 2 years old. Don't feed it. Don't water it. I don't do any of that to this. But it's getting cut down because it's a male. I took cuttings of it. It's over there. So if I want a male for something, I have it, but that thing doesn't make fruit. I bought it, and they lied to me and said it was a white mulberry, which it very well may be, but it's a male. It doesn't make fruit. So just like that's supposed to be a Pakistan, it's never made fruit. I don't know if it'll make fruit. I have to let it get big enough though. But I think if I get it in the ground, maybe I can tell. And then if it doesn't make fruit, it's going to die too. I don't have time for these mulberries that's not making fruit. But mulberry is a very tough plant. Even in the drought, I didn't water that thing. And it So for people who think, or wonder, I should say, if you wonder if you have to baby a mulberry or something, no, you don't. They're tough. They're just like blackberries and stuff like that. It's freaking hard to kill them. It's hard to kill a fig too, unless you just completely neglect it and it's in a pot. If it's in the ground, it's very hard to kill a fig. Just like blackberries. If they're in the ground, it's very hard to kill them. So I just wanted to come back here right quick and kind of show you what I was talking about, this stuff. So these trees are all in containers, right? Those figs are not going to stay in containers for very much longer. When it gets just a touch cooler, because I'm sweating like I'm going to the electric chair. But these Rubbermaid containers here, the three in the front that house sweet potatoes, and this one has turmeric in it. But all three of them have sweet potatoes in them. They're vining out now. So all of those are composting containers. So when I started those, I started them with vegetable scraps, twigs, leaves, anything that could compost down. That's what I started them with. That's what I start most of my containers with nowadays. I don't start my containers with a lot of soil. If I need some soil, I'll put like a bag at the top. I do like how Robbie does. I just get one bag, and then that one bag will give you, 3 or 4 inches at the top. And if you have seedlings, your seedlings will grow fine, and eventually the roots will grow down into the composting stuff. They love that stuff. So, but I like that aspect of it because it's not something that I have to feed. I don't feed this stuff back here. I feed the trees once a year. I put some spikes in the ground, those fruit tree spikes. I feed them once a year. Job's, I think, makes them. But when I water these, because these are composting, they have holes in the bottom because I showed me setting these up. They have holes in the bottom, and therefore when the water runs out of them, it's really kind of like compost tea that runs out. But if you notice, I have them planted up here kind of in front of my trees to one side. The ground slopes off going that way. So that kumquat tree is lower than this persimmon tree. So when water leaks out, when it leaks out of here, drains out of here, it'll start saturating the ground and it'll run that way to those trees. That's why I don't have anything over there. But I do have 2 containers in the middle, though. They're similar. They're composting containers as well. That one and that one. I need to redo the blue one. It's way too low. I don't have anything in there except for I got a couple of kumquats in there. Angela asked me for kumquats a while back, and I forgot to email her. But I remember she asked me. So, Angela, I got your kumquats. I ain't, I got them. It's not that I don't have them. Oh, wow. Those are the wild garlic chives are going to seed. I see now. But anyway, so when these drain out, like I said, they feed, the compost tea feeds the pear trees, the peach trees. So these are not things that I really feed a ton. They just kind of, these containers up here help me do that. So I think that's for the most part. I don't have a ton of other things. I have a similar situation going over here by the bananas too. Over here where I have this turmeric, it's the same thing. When I water those, it drains and any nutrition will go into the bananas because your containers do leach nutrition. I want y'all to know that and keep that in mind, that your containers do leach nutrition. They leach, plant food and stuff. It washes through much easier than if stuff was planted in ground, but everybody can't plant in ground. So you have to do what you have to do. So it's in your best interest if you can to catch that nutrition or let it feed something else. So since I don't have it in a situation where I could catch it here, when it leaches out of here, the bananas are slightly lower than those. Like I said, all my land slopes off that way. So water comes from my neighbor's yard and goes, it's not like a river, but that's the way the topography is here. That side of my property is lower than this side. So I think about that, and think about that on your property when you do things. Which way does water run? If you can't tell which way water runs, I'll try to show you in my yard if I can. But yeah, so the bananas are slightly lower. When this stuff drains out, it just wants to go right here and it go right into the bananas. These over here, they're just kind of like the ones in the front. I'm gonna add some more to this, but if I add more, like I would put a tire here and it would leave me with a spot there, and I would plant in that spot. So I would mimic what I have in the front. But if you are trying to figure out how water runs on your property, the best way is right after it rains really, really good, come outside and see if you can tell. Sediment is usually pushed, or leaves or whatever is pushed however the water is running. So like here, there's kind of a step down. I don't know if y'all can tell. It just looks, and you see how it takes a turn. See how it's real sandy right in here? And that's part of the reason why. where water takes this path, it just kind of goes that way. Grass naturally doesn't really grow right here. There was trees right here, and the grass just hasn't filled in. And like I told y'all, I'm not interested in buying grass and all that stuff. But it's actually hard to tell right now. It's much easier to tell after a rainstorm because you can actually see like where the water. It'll cut a path through those leaves right here. It'll cut a path through there. You usually can tell right here. You can kind of tell it now. And you see this little valley. This is a little lower, and it'll cut a path. It'll tell you where how the water runs. And a lot of times I have a lot of sediment. You can just tell it's all washing that way. When I say sediment, I mean like leaves, stuff that falls out of these trees, leaves and all that stuff that's on the ground from mowing the grass. The grass clippings, because I don't bag my grass clippings. Well, yes, I do a little bit. Well, you know how lawnmowers are. Some goes in the bag and some hits the ground. It just is what it is. So after a hard rain, you can see all of that stuff just like, it looks like it was trying to be washed that way. So that's one way to tell which way your water goes in your property. If you have any sinkholes or whatever, you can tell then too, because water will be standing there. You know, just different things like that. So, you know, be on the lookout for stuff like that, and that way you can kind of tailor your property and your garden to work for you and not against you. But I don't know what the weather's going to do today. None of the cats are really outside, which leads me to believe that it actually might rain. The cats are better meteorologists than the actual meteorologists. And I asked them if they went to school, and they said no. So I don't know, but that's why you don't see them out here. So I'm going to go in and catch a breather because I'm sweating like it ain't no tomorrow. And I'm moving because if I be still for more than 2 seconds, the mosquitoes eat me. So yeah. Till next time. See you guys later.